If you asked me about things in entertainment that have really stuck with me throughout the years, specifically in the horror genre, me saying PT left an impact on me would be an understatement. That's because PT wasn't really just a game. The whole process of finding out about it then trying it for yourself was more of an entire experience. It played out just like an old internet horror story. A game appeared on the PlayStation Store, free to download, with a cryptic name and no real description. Then upon playing it, you go through one of the most unsettling games you've ever played. Today, I want to reflect on PT. I figure there's some people who haven't heard about it, or at least haven't thought about it in a long time. Then I'm going to quickly dissect what the game consists of, to see if it still lives up to today's horror standards 6 years later. Welcome to the lab. PT was released on the PS Store on August 12, 2014 after being announced at Gamescom that year. This is usually the part where I'd give a spoiler warning, but PT has been unavailable to download directly for years now, so I'm just gonna get into it. It was a mysterious game with a mysterious name. Let's hypothetically assume you haven't heard of it before. Upon launching it, an unexplained title screen greets you, along with the studio who developed the game. Spoiler alert, that studio doesn't exist. It never has. The next screen appears, not even 15 seconds in, and we're met with a third piece of cryptic information, this time a message. Watch out. The gap in the door. It's a separate reality. The only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you? We begin by waking up. From what? We don't know yet. And there's something off about this bug on the floor. There's not much else to this initial room, so we're drawn to the door. Now we're in a hallway. Not a particularly interesting hallway, but there's something unsettling about the quietness of it all, with just the creaking of a ceiling light and some murmurings about a string of similar murders on the radio.
There was another family shot to death in the same state last month, and in December last year, a man used a rifle and meat cleaver to murder his entire family. In each case, the perpetrators were fathers.
There's pictures of family members strewn about, but other than that, nothing of notable significance. So we continue to the other door that we're drawn towards. It looks at first to lead down towards a basement of some sorts, but upon entering, we're greeted with this. And so the cycle begins. This is the bread and butter of the game. You begin to get used to this cycle of just walking through a mysterious hallway. What makes it a horror game are the unsettling events that begin to crop up during the cycle. It really captures the whole feeling of making you second-guess your surroundings. Was this here before, you might ask yourself. And eventually, when the changes are more apparent, it becomes the feeling of, God, I really wish I was just back in the normal version of this creepy hallway. So what follows is an ever-increasing intensity of disturbing and paranormal events. Therefore, progression exists in the game without it really feeling like progression. There's a loose plot to follow, regarding fathers who killed their own wives and daughters. And it's implied that the radio, giving out a specific string of numbers, is what led to these murders.
204863.
But there's a few more prominent events going on in the moment as the player. After most of the major events occur, the game will just infinitely loop and nothing else major will happen besides the flashlight switching colors. At this point, we could take different steps to trigger the game's ending. At the time, as in almost 6 years ago, there was a lot of confusion and debate on how exactly to get the ending. After a lot of trial and error, the correct steps seemed to be to wait until midnight, walk exactly 10 steps, say a bunch of shit into the microphone, stop moving entirely, then wait for the phone to ring. This is where the identity of the game is revealed, and boy what a reveal it was. PT actually stands for Playable Teaser, a teaser for a new Silent Hill game that was going to be coming out, being created by Hideo Kojima, and if it was anything like this demo, it was going to be something great. However, our quaint little spooky game didn't have the happy ending we wanted it to. In March of 2015, news began to circulate that Kojima was to leave the video game company he was on contract with, Konami, after finishing Metal Gear Solid 5. The whole drama between Konami and Hideo Kojima is another big rabbit hole in and of itself, but a few of the consequences of that debacle were Silent Hills being cancelled outright, and the PT demo being removed from the PS Store on April 29, 2015. It's been unavailable to download it officially since then. If you never deleted it off your PlayStation, you can still re-download it. And it's still possible to get the game onto your PlayStation by using your PC as a proxy, which is sort of annoying to pull off. You could also just download Unreal PT, an Unreal Engine remake of the game for PC. It's not as pretty or has as many details as the PlayStation 4 version, but the in-game events are faithful and it runs at a high frame rate. I've got a link to download it in the description of this video. So does PT hold up today, 6 years later? The quickest answer is of course, And while one might wonder what the point of validating the quality of a demo instead of a full game is, I say there's a lot of interesting things to point out here. First of all, many fully fledged games were directly inspired to be created just because of the PT demo. The most obvious example of this is Visage, which I've already done a review of. There was also a game in development called Allison Road, which was directly stated to be a spiritual successor to PT. However, it doesn't seem like it's going to ever see the light of day, as no news about it has been heard since August of 2016. I'm also fairly certain that Layers of Fear took heavy inspiration from PT as well. Indirect comparisons are also noteworthy, I believe, just for how the landscape of the gaming horror genre was changed. PT was meant to represent what a new Silent Hill game could look like, but one of the aspects that made this a surprising revelation was that PT was entirely in a first-person perspective, and no Silent game ever has been before. It's easy to observe the benefits of swapping to a first-person perspective in an unsettling environment. It feels more personalized, more confrontational, your peripheral vision is far more limited. Now I believe it to be more coincidental than anything, but Resident Evil 7 released 3 years after PT, and it just so happened to be the first Resident Evil game to be in a first-person perspective, and receiving far more glowing praise than any other Resident Evil game in a long time. Essentially, PT got a lot right for the short little game that it is. It gives you an uncomfortable environment. You never really feel safe or sure of anything that's happening. It really creates the sensation of being trapped in a sort of hellish purgatory, which has been considered a theme in the Silent Hill games. The sound effects, and even lack thereof, are very effective. The screams sound real, the silence is deafening, and the radio steals the show with its cryptic messages and suggestions.
Now it's time for action. Our society is rotten to the core. I'm talking to all the fine, upstanding folks got their welfare cut, got their jobs pulled out from under us.
The only enemy you face in the game, widely believed to be named Lisa, is terrifying and can strike you when you least expect it. I believe the game even toys with attempting to give the player sensations of claustrophobia. There's one segment in which you get locked in a small, dark bathroom with nothing else to interact with besides a crying unborn fetus in the sink. You're stuck there for a good amount of time, and the cries become deafening. The game also requires you to use the zoom feature it has more than a few times. It essentially slowly pans the camera forward, further limiting your peripheral vision and forcing you to focus in on a hyper-specific object in the already small hallway, making you feel even more claustrophobic. So all in all, I'd say yes, it does hold up, and it still beats a lot of modern horror games. It was short but sweet, unforgettable, horrifying, and most of all, it was free. I have not yet and probably will never forget about it. Thanks for watching.